The Raiders are the laughingstock of the NFL yet again after an embarrassing 19-14 win, their worst win in franchise history over the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm Mitchell Renz, host of the Raiders Report, and damn it, I could not wait to do an Overreaction Monday today because I woke up still fired up, still upset, still absolutely heartbroken that the Raiders can't even tank the correct way. If anybody out there is trying to get their hands on some awesome workout supplements because you need to work off some of the anger that you just experienced going through this entire season the way that you have, you had a chance to get the number 1 overall pick and you fall down just a little bit. Use code Raiders for 20% off at pandasups.com. Let's face the facts here. I think every single Raiders fan deep down a little bit thought, holy crap, there's no way that the Raiders are going to beat the Jags, but thought with Aidan O'Connell starting, that could potentially happen. I have seen a lot of comments. I have seen a lot of nation-on-nation hate, which I do not want. What I do want is this. If you woke up this morning, because when I woke up this morning, I was like, man, we only got 2 more games to go, and then this nightmare of a season is over, and then we can figure out where the hell we got to go for 2025. I mean this. If you need a place to vent, down in the comments, live on our show, Instagram, Twitter, I want people who need to vent to pull up to anything that I do, because believe me when I tell you this, I'm in the exact same boat you are. I need to vent as well, so please hit that subscribe button. What we're going to do now is we're going to go through the top trending topics after the Raiders win against the Jags. And I've been seeing the Raiders aren't going to get a franchise quarterback. The Raiders are going to have to trade up to go get a QB. And then the 2025 season, it's already over. These are all the talking points that we're going to be breaking down here. Let's go to the first one, though. The Raiders, after getting a win, are not going to have an opportunity to get a franchise quarterback. This is an overreaction, and that's coming from me. Do I understand that winning this football game hurts the Raiders in the long term? Yes, I absolutely do. If the Silver and Black would have just lost against the Jags in Week 16, the Saints in Week 17, and the Chargers in Week 18, based on strength of schedule, they would have locked themselves in to the number 1 overall pick. Whether you want that number 1 pick to be Shedeur Sanders, who, let me just tell you, it is still plan A for the Silver and Black to go out and try to get a Shedeur Sanders. But let's just say they're unable to get Shedeur. Could you potentially look at getting a guy like Cam Ward, a quarterback that I actually like more than Shedeur? But this is the Raiders Report, and Tom Brady wants Shedeur Sanders. Tom Telesco wants Shedeur Sanders. Mark Davis wants Shedeur Sanders. So for that reason, that's why we've been talking about a lot. But, there is still a chance that the Raiders figure out a way to trade up to go get one of those 2 guys. So this is going to be the pinned comment here on today's show. Give me a yes or a no. Will Shedeur or Cam Ward be there at pick number 6? Because that's where the Raiders are at right now. I do not think that Cam or Shedeur, I can guarantee you, Shedeur ain't going to be there at number 6. I almost think that Shedeur is almost a lock at this point to be a top 2 pick. But, if Sanders and Ward are both gone and they're both going to be gone by pick 6, then based on what I understand, the Las Vegas Raiders are going to try to trade up, and they're going to try to give up some draft capital. So will the Silver and Black try to trade up for a quarterback? Yes, believe it, baby. And this is one of the things where I think a lot of people got to sit back and understand a little bit. If you were somebody who didn't want the Raiders to draft Shedeur, now you should actually be a little bit more nervous that they're going to give up draft capital to go up and get that quarterback. I was told this, and I made a video on it 2 weeks ago saying that the Raiders are going to be more aggressive this season in terms of going into the 2025 season than they were last, simply because they swung and missed at the quarterback position. I also did an entire show saying that the Raiders are going to pursue Shedeur harder, giggity, than they did Jayden Daniels. I'm not saying that they like Shedeur more than Jayden, but because they did not get Jayden, and because they don't want to be in the exact same situation yet again, they're going to try to go out and they're going to pursue Shedeur Sanders. Tom Brady wants it to happen. Mark Davis wants to happen. I know Davis was excited that the Raiders won yesterday. He was in the locker room. But I think he's going to realize really, really quick how much money he lost out on and how much money overall the Las Vegas Raiders ended up losing out on. So when you talk about trading up, you got to look at a few different things now because it's not as simple as the Raiders just being able to go out and get their quarterback. There have been reports that the Giants won't trade out of that number 1 pick, and I've seen reports based on the Giants like Cam Ward. I've seen reports based on the Giants liking Shedeur. Dion jokingly said the other day that the Giants, if they had the number 1 pick, was asked if Shedeur would go there. He said that they would. My point is there's been a lot more smoke around Shedeur going to the New York Giants. And if the Giants take Shedeur number 1, then the Raiders could potentially wait on drafting a quarterback. If the Giants take Cam Ward at 1, then I think that that's where you look at the Raiders potentially trying to trade up to number 2. But we got to talk about price, right? Right now, this is according to the trade value chart. And based on some of the Giants connections that we have here at Chat Sports, talk to Marshall as well. If you want to try to move up to number 1, reminder, you could have just taken Shedeur at number 1. Now, if you want Sanders, you're going to have to potentially go up. And this is what it's going to cost you. The number 6 overall pick, your 2nd and 3rd round pick, and that 3rd round pick is going to be your higher of the 3 round picks. And then the Raiders still have that bottom one. And then again, another 1st round pick in 2026. You are giving up a lot of draft capital on a player that you could have just had. Now, I don't think that the Giants move on from number 1. So if the Giants take Cam Ward, then that tells me that the Raiders are going to try to move up to number 2. And I do think that the Patriots are an intriguing team because they got their franchise quarterback. Gerard Mayo last offseason, if you guys remember, said that he believes that the way that you rebuild a team is to accumulate a lot of draft picks, and this is a trade that the Raiders could do. So you give New England the number 6 overall pick, you give up your 2nd round pick in 2025, and you give up your 1st round pick in 2026. For a team out there that did not want the Raiders to take Shedeur Sanders, I hope that you're all ready because I saw a lot of people celebrating that Raiders win yesterday, and this is all I'm going to say to the people that are celebrating that win. I don't even like being a part of Team Tank. Nobody wants to be a part of Team Tank. But when you go through a season, when you go through the multiple seasons that Raider fans have gone through with this organization, I don't think that it's fair to be upset that people are tanking. But to the people that celebrated the Raiders' 19-14 win against the Jacksonville Jaguars, I hope that you're ready to pay $20 for a gallon of milk that you could have had for $4. I'm talking about Shedeur, so congratulations. Coming up here, we're just going to get into the harsh reality of this Raiders situation. If the Raiders would have had the number 1 overall pick, they would have set themselves up in such a great position in so many different ways, and that loss, it's really going to impact your 2025 offseason. I'll get into what the Raiders did because they screwed up so much, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. If your belly's getting worse and worse because this team's making you drink from the rooftops, then I'm telling you, you got to get started with Panda Subs, owned and operated by a diehard Raiders fan, and he told me to take away Code Tank because they don't even deserve it. So we're going Code Raiders for 20% off at pandasubs.com. I got a sweet tooth, and I know when I get stressed out, I eat a lot of sweets. I woke up this morning, and I saw some of the people here at Chat Sports made some sweets, but I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I got a protein shake. The one that I ate this morning, or I guess consumed this morning, was the Cinnamon Toast Cereal Protein Shake from Panda Subs. I needed my meal replacement. We're pumping out tons and tons of content all week long here on this channel. But you know what? I always stay hungry. And if you're someone that's trying to stay hungry, but also trying to lose a little bit of weight, pandasubs.com, code Raiders for 20% off. Let's go to the final thing here. Is the 2025 season already over? The Raiders need to draft a quarterback. If the Raiders don't draft a quarterback, you might be in trouble. But this is an overreaction. The 2025 season is not already over. Did you shoot yourself in the foot? Yeah, absolutely. You dropped a 45-pound weight directly on your big toe, and now I need you to try to run through this offseason. Can the Raiders still get their franchise quarterback? Yes, of course they can. The Raiders can still go out there. You can get it done. It's just simply going to be more difficult. You're either going to overpay in the draft, or you might have to overpay for a little bit of insurance. So, when you think about it, the Raiders could have set themselves up better from a planning standpoint. Now, the Raiders are a less desirable destination because when you have the number 1 overall pick, you can plan on what you're going to do in the draft, in free agency, from a coaching standpoint. You can also say that, it's a less desirable destination. Like if I'm Mike Vrabel, who's the Raiders' #1 choice, and Vrabel's going to have a lot of other teams that are going to be, looking at him. The Cowboys are going to be looking at him. The Browns are going to be looking at him. And if you wanted to bring in Mike Vrabel, if you wanted to move on from Antonio Pierce, you wanted to have the most desirable destination humanly possible. So here's why this win over the Jacksonville Jaguars cost the Raiders very critical planning time. If the Raiders have the #1 pick, they can already plan for the draft. What do I mean by that? If you can already plan for the draft, you know that your #1 pick is going to be Shedeur Sanders, which then means instead of taking all that time, resources, everything that goes into that #1 pick, you're still going to go do a lot of those things anyway, and you're still going to go scout Shedeur. You're still going to go scout probably Cam Ward. You're still going to go scout Dylan Gabriel. But then you can also put a little bit of extra concentration on some of those players that you're going to find in the 2nd round and 2 picks in the 3rd round. Just a little bit more, especially for a team that's got 10-plus draft picks this season. This would have been very important. If the Raiders knew that they were getting Shedeur in the draft, then you could spend better in free agency. Do the silver and black have a lot of money? Yes, you got about $108 million in salary cap space. But now that you don't know who your quarterback is, what if you have to do what the Raiders did this past offseason? Go out, sign a cheap, shitty backup quarterback if you're not going to trust Eisen again. Allocate money that you could have used in other areas, because if you know you're going to get Shedeur, then what if you go out and add somebody in free agency that pairs well with Shedeur? You add an offensive lineman that pairs well with Shedeur. You add a wide receiver that pairs well with Shedeur. Your planning process from free agency is so critical. And then maybe the most important thing that you could do, knowing what you're going to do in free agency, knowing what you're going to do in the draft, it can help you put the proper staff together. It doesn't matter who your quarterback is if you're going to put Luke Getsy as an offensive coordinator. I don't care who your quarterback is if your head coach is going to be Josh McDaniels. But what the Raiders could have done is they could have set themselves up knowing what their draft plan is, knowing what their draft plan is with 10-plus picks, knowing what they're going to spend in free agency with over $108 million, and knowing the perfect coaching staff to put in place to do all of those things. And because the Raiders cost themselves the #1 pick, you can still do those things. You're putting yourself. You could have taken 3 steps forward, and instead, the Raiders yet again figured out a way to take 3 steps back. So will the Raiders get a franchise quarterback? There's still a chance to happen. You're just going to have to trade up a little extra to do it. You're going to have to spend, and people know that you're going to be desperate. For that reason, you're probably going to have to overspend. Is the 2025 season over? No. This is an overreaction, and I know it's Overreaction Monday, but if you're a Raiders fan and you need to vent, if you're a Raiders fan and you made it this far in the video, I want you to spam RO4L. Now, I'm not going to be live tomorrow. My mom's in town, and quite frankly, I needed a day or two after just how frustrated that game made me. Will you get a video every day on this channel? Yeah, absolutely. Why? The real ones deserve it. We've put out a video every day on this channel for over 5 years, and you're going to get a video every single day this week during the holiday break. So shout out to all my real ones for making it this far in the video, because if you watched this show after that game yesterday, that tells me you rock with Jeremy Chugs and I, and that means a lot to us.